welcome to the Firearms Radio Network presentation of the Reloading Podcast. I guess you could call this Reloading Podcast Light. So I'm hoping that you all out there can hear me because I got a new soundboard over the weekend and I did a test with it, but the test wasn't working the way I wanted it to. So I have no idea if this is actually working. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Huh. Can you hear me now? Hello, 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 hello. Yeah, unfortunately, ba-dum. Yay! So nobody can make out what I'm saying. Is this any better? I don't know. How about now? Testing, 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 testing. Hello, testing, 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 testing. Yeah. Well, there I'm making a little bit of noise now. All right. How about now? Is that any better? Test, 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 test. A little better. Anyway, so I don't know. I don't want to turn the gain up too much because then I'll get too loud and blast everybody. So I'm trying to play with it slowly by slowly, and I can't really. I got a little better. All right then. So, yeah, about that. So yeah, as I said, I got a different soundboard over the weekend. I got it hooked up. Didn't get a really chance to play with it to see how well it would work. The funny thing is I did a Hangouts call with Travis, which was the only real testing I got with it, and it worked, and he could hear me fine. So I don't know. Stranger things. Oh, you can hear me, but now I'm amplified. Is that better now? I turned the gain back down. So. So anyway, so supposedly Trumbo will be along. Jim went to Pennsylvania. Sharenda's out teaching kids how to shoot, or talking about a meeting on how to shoot pheasants. For those of you tuned in last week, know that Phil's not a regular attender now. All right. So am I back to where I was? Is this good? Good. Yes. Yes. No. Hello. I'm just going to keep mumbling until I get to see comment feedback, which takes a few seconds. So we'll just keep mumbling. All right, cool. This is frustrating. So, yeah. So it appears to be from feedback that most of it seems to be good. All right. I don't know. We'll just play it by ear. Cool. So I'm getting positive feedback on that. So yeah. I do want to show one thing that came in. And I'm going to make some noise just so you guys can hear that to see if you can hear it. But so this is, as you can see, kind of behind me. I've got the Patriot Patch banner back there. If you see, this is the new patch for the patch of the month. And people are kind of wondering about this, but see, it's actually a follow-up to last year's. So last year was, he sees you when you're sleeping. Hi, Jason.
Hello.
And this year, it's he knows when you're awake, which for anybody knows the song, knows that's how it goes. He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. He knows when you've been bad or good. So be good, for goodness sake. But so that's that's the cool new patch of the month. You got yours yet, Jason?
I have, yes.
Awesome. But Jason, it's just you and me. We were going to talk about trimming.
Okay.
And I think everybody can hear my damn breathing. I don't know. Jason, can you still hear me good, or am I really quiet now?
You're a little bit quieter, but I can still understand you.
Okay. I don't know. Move it up a little bit. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I tested it with Travis, but he was on his cell phone, and he said I sounded good, but I've been doing a lot of playing. The old mixer, as you found out the hard way from the lovely feedback that it was putting back through, was going to die, and it pretty much did. So I did some shopping around, found one on Amazon, a nice Mackie that'll do really well for us, and it was only $90. So there was that. So, but I didn't get a chance to really dial it in. So Jason, did you do anything in shooting, hunting, and reloading this week?
I did.
What'd you do?
Lubed up about 500 158 grain 38 caliber bullets, and set up the Dillon 650 for 357.
Nice.
And then turned my son loose and let him make some ammo.
Excellent. That's the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
How much did you wind up cranking out, all told?
He did. I think he did 200. He might have done 300, but
Yeah.
Mostly we were sitting around talking and just visiting.
It's always fun.
Mm-hmm.
So 284 Win wants to know how the 40X is shooting.
284 Win. I haven't taken it out in a while, so it's not shooting very well at the moment.
So C. Malshany wants to know if you can resize 243 to 260. He knows you can downsize a neck, but can you upsize? Well, yes and no. The problem you run into if you don't anneal it before you try and upsize is you can really thin out the neck, and more importantly, you can actually stretch the neck to the point where it actually splits. So I know a couple of the listeners have done a lot of upsizing, shall we say. Have you ever done any, Jason?
No, I haven't.
I haven't either. So it can be done. Um, I think you'd honestly be better off finding somebody to trade the 243 to that's got 308 and then downsize. But you can definitely do it, but you're definitely going to. And Mark K said upsizing will shorten the brass, so which is true because now you're taking the same amount of brass and trying to go more. Oh, Nelson said that upsizing is easier than down. Okay. So like I said, I've never tried to upsize, so I don't know for sure. But yeah, definitely no. I think we had a conversation this a few weeks back about that, and I do know that absolutely annealing is going to be the key. So. Paul Nelson said a tapered expander is needed. Makes perfect sense. You don't want to try and jump that much in one shot. So. I think we'll share that with everybody. Thank you, Paul. Thank you. So, Jason, what we were planning on talking about is trimming. So I don't know how much you want to get into that or not. You have an important perspective though, because you have the nice fancy Dylan trimmer set up.
Mm-hmm.
So I know people would like to hear about how that works, how well or not well, and whether you think you could actually set that up on a different press besides the Dylans. So.
So, yeah, I don't see why you couldn't set it up on a different press.
Okay.
It's been a while, so bear with me here, but and your first stage, you punch the primer, you're resizing the die, and then when you go into the trimmer, it actually has a size die that you're pushing it into.
Okay.
And then it trims right off the top of that.
Okay.
So all I've done with it was 223 so far. And as far as accuracy, 1,000ths of an inch variance might have been what I was getting. It was almost nothing.
Yeah, that's negligible, especially if you're power trimming.
So it doesn't chamfer deburr. You don't need it to deburr because it doesn't leave a burr.
Okay.
As far as the chamfering went, I really didn't have much of an issue, so I just didn't bother with it.
Yeah, I suppose if you're doing 223, you're not going to be loading up cast into it, so you don't really need to worry about it.
Yep.
You're probably loading boat tails, and chamfering wouldn't be really a big issue.
Yep.
Okay. So maybe if you're doing pistol brass, you may have to, but Or if you're specifically going to load up cast, you may want to think about it, but otherwise it was good to go. So, now what type of blade setup does that use? Does it use something like a Gerard or a World's Finest Trimmer? Or what type of setup does it have?
Yeah, as far as I remember, it's got the exact same cutter blade that comes down over the top of it.
Okay.
Straight shaft down.
Okay. Excuse me. So what I'm talking about with the World's Finest Trimmer is, if you look in there, you can see essentially it's an end mill. And then you can kind of see the cross that's in there. So this is for 308. Basically, you just slap this in your drill, put it on your drill here. If you've got a drill press, it works a little easier. I wouldn't use gloves like this because they're fabric and it's just going to spin quick. Get something with some grip on it, because as this is turning, you actually have to hold your brass and keep it from moving. So that's why a drill press is perfect, because you can run it at a slow speed. If you got a cordless drill, it's a lot trickier. You better learn how to use that trigger. So what some people have done, sorry, I don't think my drill's in the garage tonight. Oh, there it is. Sweet. What some people do is they use zip ties to lock the trigger on the drill. Stop that. And so what they'll do is they'll lock it, not quite that slow, but basically you put a zip tie around it, and then what you can do is you slowly tighten the zip tie. It'll slowly squeeze the trigger and allow you to do that. Now, the one thing I didn't do is I didn't grab any 308 brass. I thought I had a piece on the bench. So, yeah, there's as I was trying to explain, I couldn't think of the name of it, but yeah, it's an end mill. Okay, so so here is and you can definitely go at different speeds, but the way it's set, you can't really see. You just kind of feed it in. And you push hard. And that's where you're going to want that rubber glove. Oh, thank God that was empty. So like these are made for ice fishing. So they've got a neoprene on them. So that way you can really push that in there. And you can kind of, I don't know if you can see the brass chips falling. So, but you can definitely tell that it's nice and shiny. So, and this one really doesn't, World's Finest Trimmer really doesn't leave burrs either, that I've noticed. Pretty much most anything that's using an edge mill is going to give you a nice flat without a lot of burrs. So, but if you did, this is a couple of different burr and chamfering tools. So this one is from RCBS. And so that one's for chamfering. And that one's for deburring. And then Where'd it go? Sorry, I was doing some cleaning in the garage, and as usual, most of the stuff winds up on the bench. So, and then this is actually Lee's little tool for the same purpose. And so with Lee's, it goes like this, and then you flip it over and go like that. So that's one of the ways you can trim. Jason's got that beautiful Dylan, so he can trim that way. Now this is kind of a cheaper way to do it. So what this is this is from Lee, and this is about a brass trimmer as you can get. How it works is this goes through, and then it's got a pin that goes through the end, which sets the depth. Not everyone, Bradley, not everyone, just most of them. Sorry, the kid wasn't supposed to move a bunch of crap around, but did. So anyway, how the Lee one works is it has a little adapter. So for Lee, for their trimmer set, and I forgot to grab the one that's in the package. I don't know where it went. Sorry, gang. I had this all out 2 weeks ago when we were talking about trimming, and then that never happened. So there it is. Okay. So when you order a trimmer from Lee, this is how it comes. And they've got all sorts of different ways you can use it. Well, the way I did it is I got this lovely little adapter that goes in your drill. As you can see, it's threaded on one side, and then it's got the bit for the drill on the other side. So you just chuck that up. Make sure it's nice and tight. And then how this works is actually this tightens up. So would you set it up, and then you actually can tighten the brass into it so it doesn't move. And then how this goes, you turn your hat like that, and then it actually stops. The pin actually stops on that center plate. Sorry, I have my camera turned tonight and I forget it. So there, that's better. So the pin actually hits that plate in the center, and that's what stops, and that's what sets your depth. So anyway, and then with this end, unscrew this out of the cutter. So here's the cutter here. So, and then we've got other ways to do it too. So this here is an RCBS, and I'll adjust the camera so you guys can see. Now this one is a hand crank. And then how it sets up, as opposed to using regular shell holders, it has these little shell plates. And then they lock in here. You push the handle down on this, And then as you do that, it moves the pins out and you can swap out the plates. Now this one, they've set up for 223. But there we go. Oh, that one's already been trimmed. And this is why you should keep your bench clear, kids. But unfortunately, my wife likes to throw everything on here as much as everything else. This slides back and forth. This here is your depth setting. So what you do, push down on the handle, release that, slide your brass in, let it go. Now your brass is nice and firm. And now what you need to do, you need to figure out what depth you want. So as you can see, let me zoom in a little bit. If you guys hear a lot of breathing in this, please let me know so I can adjust it. Like I said, I'm playing with it and trying to get it all set. So here's the cutter. And how it stays straight is it's got a little pilot bushing on here. I'll hold up one of the bigger ones. This one's for 44. So you can kind of see a difference. But it's designed to go inside the shell casing and make sure it stays straight. How you switch those pilots out, there's a set screw in here, just pops out. And then how you set your depth is it's actually got a dual setting. So, which you can't see right now. So let me move that back into the camera. So you've got your gross motor, your gross adjustment, which is this right here with this set screw. Wrong one. So that's your gross adjustment. And what I'll usually do is I have a starting depth. And actually what you really can do to make this really nice and easy is actually grab your calipers. Jason, you can talk, you know.
Okay.
Grab your caliper, measure your overall length currently without dropping the brass. And then figure out what your actual overall length is supposed to be. And because I'm showing everybody how to do this, I'll actually grab my book. And look it up. So one thing you're going to notice is overall length is going to change, but your actual trim tool length is not. Now, depending on which book you look in, they may have slightly different trim tool lengths. But theoretically, if they're all operating off, you know, typical specs, then they should all be the same. Especially if they're like off SAMI specs. So in this case, both the Hornady and the Lyman say a trim to is 1.75. So this is actually under already because this is 1.736. So we don't need to trim it. But just for kicks, we're going to. So what you can do is you can set that so it's actually just touching. And then because it's already close, you know, we're supposing it's already close, we can go ahead and, where did my Allen wrench go? Key, Reiki. There it is. All right. What you can do is go ahead and adjust your lock for that. And say this is a little short and we need to go a little longer, then what you can do is you can actually use your fine adjustment here and back this off until you get the right depth, or vice versa. If you're too long and you know you're going to need to go shorter, then what you can do is you can spin this all the way out, get some gap in between here, and then you can walk it in as you're adjusting it. Now this also has, as you can look and see here, these both have set screw locks on them, so you can actually lock them both down so you don't have to worry about it changing. So. Fat Elvis wants to know, is case overall measurement more important than datum to case mouth measurement? Jason?
Let's see. Yes, it is important, because if you get too long and you're stabbing your neck into your lambs, you're going to have a problem. But for accuracy, the datum to the case mouth is more important.
So I can't answer because I don't even really know, to be honest, completely honest, never even touched or messed with any of the datum stuff or anything like that. So I don't even know what the heck datum is, honestly. So I've not gotten to where I'm getting anything sort of serious, that serious, I guess. So, but I think we did a show a long time ago on definitions.
Yep.
We should probably do that again.
Hey, Chris Sharp, is your wife listening tonight? So in the listeners chat, some of the guys are talking about the Wilson.
Yeah.
This is the Wilson. And your case actually sits inside this and then sits on the trimmer. So it keeps everything as square as it can be.
Oh,
It is slow, but it's extremely accurate. It's good equipment.
yeah.
But I wouldn't want to do several hundred on this.
No. Okay, so the location of the datum line is picked by Sammy when the standards are chosen. So that's something that we'd have to look at Sammy's specs to figure out. So, Jason, does the Gerard size off the shoulder?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, the most important thing in trimming is what, Jason?
Consistency.
Okay. So, what's the easiest way to screw up your possibility of consistency?
Drinking.
True. I'll drink to that.
Changing your settings midstream.
It's another one. What if I don't size my brass consistently?
Yep, that would definitely make a difference.
Hello, birthday girl.
Hello there.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
How old are you?
Carry the one. 42.
Oh, I remember when I was 42.
Right?
Oh, wait a minute. No, I don't.
So, hello to Hunt Shooter Off Road. He's on the other side of the world. So,
What's the subject for tonight?
we were kind of talking about brass trimming and different options, benefits, and we hadn't really got into the benefits or detractions thereof. And then we brought up the term datum line, which I had no idea what it was.
Oh.
So, but we've talked about, or we kind of talked about that. Datum line is actually set by Sammy. So theoretically, the datum line would vary depending on whether it was a Sammy cartridge or a CIP cartridge. And what do you do if it's a Wildcat? Then you wouldn't have a datum line. So, I don't know. When I always do the trim to length, but the problem is it depends on how you're sizing your brass. Paul Nelson said Sinclair has shoulder gauges that measure the shoulder. I'm guessing that's probably quite a bit different than what we were using, which was the overall length gauge. So I'm going to take a look at that.
Do you mean the Hornady, Mike?
Yeah. Oops. Dun, dun, dun. Ooh, what you got there?
Birthday gift.
Ooh, from
Check
who?
it out. From FW Arms.
Ooh.
Can you see the color? It's kind of crappy.
I saw the color on your picture you posted today, but right now it looks white to us.
It's Pepto Bismol pink.
Nice. That is awesome.
It is. You know what I'm doing tomorrow, right?
Uh-huh.
It's got that new metal, fresh paint smell.
All right, so I'm looking up. Oh wow, Brownell sells the world's finest trimmer. Did not realize that. All right, so. So what you been up to on your birthday?
Well, I worked half a day today. Um, I volunteered the other half. I packaged up and passed out toys that are donated to children that are in placement or foster care for Christmas.
Oh, awesome.
So it's a 3-day project. So I was only able to do one day. And what else? And then I had a meeting for a pheasant hunt. And then I finalized my 3-day deer hunt for next month.
Sweet.
And then I'm hanging out with you, wild bunch.
Sorry, I'm looking for. In the meantime, the Aussie wants to know: can you form 300 hammer from 223? If anybody knows the answer to that,
I have no idea what the 300 hammer is.
it is a newer cartridge. Oh, Wildcat. It's from Wilson Combat. Basically, let's see here. 300 hammer was developed for optimal terminal performance and offers near 308 Winchester effectiveness, amazing recoil and amazing accuracy and low recoil on the lightweight and compact WC-15 platform. Terminal performance on over 200 Texas feral hogs has proven it kills much more effectively than the 6.5 Grendel, 6.8 SBC, 7.62x39, or 300 Blackout. Due to the optimization of bullet weight to barrel twist, accuracy has proven to be outstanding. Sub 1-inch groups are the norm with multiple bullet choices, varying applications such as hunting, target shooting, and tactical use. Undoubtedly, the 300 hammer will be compared to the popular 300 Blackout or 7.62x39, and as the comparison chart indicates below, the hammer far exceeds both in velocity and energy when using 110 to 150 grain bullets. Yeah, it's just a bunch of rifles and videos. Okay, there it is. Excuse me. Okay, so just because I've been curious about it, and we'll kind of use this as our cartridge corner for the night. 300 hammer and a 300 Blackout, both with a 16.25-inch barrel. Obviously, the 300 hammer, you're not going to be buying factory ammo. So, other than I think Wilson sells preloaded ammo for it, like they do for the 7.62x40. So, but you're talking 110 grain. The Sierra 110 grain hollow points. They've got 2,600 feet per second and 1,651 foot-pounds, whereas the Hornady Black VMAX has 2395 feet per second and 1401 foot-pounds. So you walk all the way up to the 150 grain. The Hornady 150 grain SSTs, you're talking at 2240 feet per second and 1671 foot-pounds. And then on the Federal 150 grain Fusions, 1900 feet per second and 1202 foot-pounds. Now, in all fairness, you're talking hand loads versus factory ammo. It's not an apples to apples comparison, because I guarantee you they're not using same powder. They're not even using the same bullets in any of these. So, yeah, it's cool, but it's not really an apples to apples comparison, given the fact that they're not using similar. I don't want Bill Wilson's book. So any AR-15 platform can be converted to 300 hammer with a simple barrel change and the use of 300 blackout magazines. Yes. So cases can be made from 5.56 223 cases. So I definitely would be interested in it because it's not 300 blackout. So, but I'd also kind of want to do some more comparison and stuff on that. So, oh, Paul said shoulder bump gauge. All right. Why can I never spell gauge? I don't know. Anyway. Okay, so so I'm just going back through the comments that I missed. All right, so Wilson combats 300 blackout, basically, is what they said. Hunt Shoot Off Road said 300 Apache, which used a 30-30 projectile to allow more case fill and an AT-15 magazine. The other question was, should you trim before or after resizing? Always after. So. So there's all the different inserts. But it doesn't give me an actual view of the gauge. I hate Brownell's search sometimes. Anybody else hate Brownell's search sometimes? Raise your hands.
Right, where's my hand? There it is.
There we go. Oh, that's just a case. So all I get is so basically it looks exactly like the Hornady one that I was using a couple weeks ago. And then it's got the inserts just like, hey, Paul, are those inserts tapered then? Like the Hornadays are? Because it looks like it's pretty much the same setup as what the Hornaday one is. Bullet comparator and bump gauge body. So they sell it separately from all the adapters. So they talk about different things. So I don't know. It looks pretty much like the Hornady one that I used a couple weeks ago. So, where was I going next before I went down that side trail with the 300 hammer? Carl was talking about the Lee one, and he was talking about the next step up from this style, actually champers and devers as you're going. So I don't know. This is the basic cheap. I don't want Lee Sinclair, you stupid Google. This here is the basic trim setup from Lee. So they make a handle style. Then you get into the quick trim. And so what the quick trim is it comes set up like so with a handle, and then just a crank handle like this, and then it has a sizing die. So your die goes into your press, and this goes in, trims to the correct length. So as you look through, you can see that it's not a straight through tube, but rather there is actually a setup in there for the brass to actually go in and stop. I don't have any loop brass, so I'm not sticking any in there. Sorry. But basically, yeah, so this just goes like that. Run your ram up, put this down and spin it. That's the absolute base one. They make a fancier one, which, and this may very well be the one that Carl's talking about. This actually has a chamfer and deburr setup on it. So this is actually a fancier. And then that goes in your drill. So what some people will do is mount their press to their drill press, and they can do that. But so, and then this actually is adjustable too. Through here, you can adjust the trim length too. So that may be the one that Carl's talking about, I think. But so yeah, it's got a little crank handle, so if you want to just do the basic one. So, and this one's also adjustable. It's got another on there. So that's kind of that basic one. So we've got a lot of different options to trim with. So Jason, what's the main difference between a World's Finest trimmer and a Gerard?
Not much.
Not much?
Mm-mm. I bought mine with the tri-way cutter, so I don't have to chamfer to burr, but okay. I think that's the only difference.
Okay. Otherwise, it's basically the same.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Paul said that the Sinclair, the gauge comes in degree of shoulder angle, so 20, 28, 40, so on. So you actually match up the little adapters with your shoulder angle. So you get a more accurate measurement. You're not just guessing to see which one looks closest. So. Meanwhile, Fat Elvis is putting, Fat Elvis 111 is putting dad jokes in the chat.
I had to read that several times before I got it.
Good grief. I saw a dad joke about Yoda earlier today, too. It's kind of funny, so I'll read it to you. It's a good dad joke. Where'd it go? Doop-a-doop-a-doo. All right. Joke for you I have. What did Yoda say when he saw himself in 4K?
What?
HD, am I? So, yeah, I thought that was kind of funny.
I'm going to sit down on that one.
As far as dad jokes go, it was kind of funny. So there you go.
What you got in that cup there, sir?
Ice.
And
Nothing anymore.
okay.
It's empty.
Some gin and tonic.
Ooh.
Paul said that the Gerard, you can also set it up so it'll do case necks if you want. That'd be interesting. I think dad jokes always get most of us in trouble. Anyway. So yeah, everybody's got their own little. I think everybody has their own kind of inexpensive trimmers. And then you step up and get fancier ones. So like the trimmers, like the world's finest trimmer, the world's cheapest trimmer, and like the Gerard, they're all going to be caliber specific. So that's going to be your kind of the difference. So the Gerard is a little bit different, and it is patented. So that's the one thing you're going to notice is patent. The Gerard's patented. I think the other ones in there not necessarily. You know, let's do this. Okay. I didn't want to do that. I want that. There we go. Okay. So here's the trimmer itself. And then here's the cutter head that screws in and out. And then it's got the setup for the chamfer and the burr, kind of like that Lee one I just showed you. Bearing setup here for the shoulder, kind of like pretty much common. So. Cartridge case annealer. What? So this is made in Texas. Yeah, fine, it doesn't want to load. I give up. Okay. Ooh, here we go. So they make their own power trimmer. And that's kind of the setup on that. You got your different shell holders and there's set up there. I don't see anything about the neck trimmer, but anyway. So, so with Little Crow Gunworks, with the world's finest trimmer, they actually have a second version. Come on, play nice, you silly computer. I don't want free shipping. I'm not ordering anything. Really? Come on. So what they did is they came out with the world's finest trimmer 2. And so the advantage of the 2 is instead of buying the whole thing every time, you buy the housing once and the cutter once. Well, I'll tell you where the cutter out. And then it's got replaceable chambers. So essentially, you just unscrew a couple of set screws, you drive the old chamber out with the dowel rod that they give you, which they give you replacements on that too. And then you put your new chamber in, tighten it back down, and away you go. So now instead of having to buy, at $70 a pop, every time you want to replace it, you get one. And then you buy your different inserts, essentially. So. And so they've got different calibers, and these are all, I think they're all $25. But if you think about it, $70 for the first, and then 25 for every other one is a lot better than $70 a shot. So. I'm just looking to see if they get little. And this one is a little easier to adjust too. So. The drawback to it is it does not come with any chambers. So that's the drawback to it. Is you do actually have to buy the chambers separately. So yeah, it's $69.95 for the outer housing, and then you have to buy your different chambers to go in. So that is the drawback of it. But 25 bucks, like I said, it's not that bad of a deal when you wind up. And then you can see here it's got the chamber in it. So it's not too bad of a deal, all things considered. But I mean, there's lots of different types of trimmers out there. Simple hand ones, powered ones. automated ones. So a lot of it depends on how serious you are and how much you're doing. Now, for somebody like Travis, who's doing a lot of 3-gun shooting, he's got a Dillon with the 1500 on it, so he can just go ahead and roll around and knock it all out. So versus me, who doesn't shoot that much, so doesn't need to get serious. But did we really miss anything, Jason?
I can't think of anything.
Okay. Trying to think. So, well, one of the things I was going to say is you can actually get a mount for your cordless drill to actually set it up like a bench press. So, including it comes with like a trigger adjustable lock and stuff like that. So, I want to say Harbor Freight's got one. Sears used to make one. Otherwise, they're out there on the web. For those of you who don't have a drill press but do have a cordless drill. So basically what happens is it just sets the drill in like this, locks it in place, and then it's got a turn handle, which it turns it up and down, and it's got a trigger lock. And I'm not even sure how much they are. But some of the things comes up when you're searching. That's not what I wanted. There we go. So there's one. Oh, that's for rotary tool. That could work. Da, 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 da. Those are for different things. But yeah, you can look around and they've got all sorts of different ones out there. And then they talk about all the different drills you can use and the stands. I mean, you've got everything from just a little simple basic one to a serious one with a huge plate that you can actually permanently mount. So kind of fun to that. I picked one up, old Craftsman one at a garage sale, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. So it works really nice. And they've got a little, a handle of some sort so you can articulate the drill up and down. John's hand loading wants to know how long the cutters last in general on the little crows. Jason, do you remember from when we had him on? I mean, that was a long time ago, but
I don't.
Okay.
I want to say it was a lot though.
Yeah, it was definitely a few 10,000s. So, but you can the plain one is available for an upgrade with a carbon one, and then you can also just buy them at a regular hardware store. It's not anything fancy and spectacular that you absolutely have to go to them and order one. as a replacement. Where'd my Allen wrench?
Oh, is that what Paul means? It's a 4-flute 3/8 end mill?
Yep.
Okay.
It's just a simple Allen screw on both sides. And it comes out. So that's what it is in the that's all it is the trimmer.
Okay.
Pull it out, put a new one in. Now, the thing to remember is when you pull it out and put a new one in, just like anything else, you have to adjust it. So, hopefully you have a trimmed piece that you can push in and use to adjust your sizing. Yeah, Paul Nelson said about $10 on Amazon for a regular one. I think the carbides are a little more, but and maybe they do have the carbide ones on Amazon too. I'm not sure. So, yeah, I mean, before you go playing around with it, make sure you've got a fully trimmed case, and maybe you don't like how it trims, so you can always adjust that up and down too. If you want. No, it is not possible to resharpen the dull cutter. Spudman wants to know. To be honest, even when they say you can sharpen drill bits, that only works half-assed. So unless you have one of the hundreds of dollar ones that's designed, I suppose if you had a fancy enough tool, theoretically you could sharpen it, but given the cost isn't that much to replace it, I don't know if you'd really want to. Anyway, sorry. Wife's going to get the kids and just letting me know. Anyway, boys were taking their final exams for a couple of their fire department or firefighter classes. So Paul said, yes, if you have the proper grinder and set angles, yes, you could sharpen it. So yeah, I mean, if you want to, I guess you could if you really wanted to. I don't know why, but I suppose if you live out in the middle of nowhere, then that would make sense. But, so, I mean, the biggest thing, single biggest thing is just make sure you size it right first.
Okay, I got mine ordered.
What?
My 3/8 4-flute end mill.
Oh, okay. Yours is kind of dull.
Well, no, I bent mine. So I think it was a 308. I had it sitting on a drill, and I had it sitting on the bench, and I was doing something, and I wasn't paying attention, and I knocked my drill off the bench, and it landed on the cutter.
Yep.
And it bent the shaft.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was a simple product to replace, so it's ordered now.
Even the Gerards are, so. But yeah. I don't. I mean, there's lots of different things you could use to trim them, but I think most of the tools that are specifically made for it work the best. So, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could probably take a Dremel and redneck something up. Somebody asked about using a belt sander. Somebody asked about using a sanding drum on a Dremel. So the biggest issue with those two ideas, or even regular sandpaper for that matter, is making sure you have it level. See, all of these tools that I just showed you are all designed with lots of money behind the engineering to make sure that when the case mouth connects the cutter, it actually is flat and level and not cockeyed. So not off by a thousandths over here, or a 3,000ths over here, or anything like that. It's all set and designed so that it cuts it evenly. So yeah, like Paul said, even Paul Nelson said, yeah, you can if you have the proper grinder and set angles, but just spend the 10 or 15 bucks. So and maybe it's a little more for Amazon, I don't know. But so all right. Paul wants to talk about the trim die. Now, are you talking about the trim die for like good grief. So interesting. That's kind of scary. So what a trim die is, and I kind of showed you a little bit. We kind of didn't really go into these, but trim die is, it's basically a chamber, essentially, in a die, and it's set to SAMI specs, and you set it up pretty much like anything else. So, and different companies make the trim dies, and then they make stuff to go with the trim dies too, so you can actually do it on. Now, Jason, you're going to be using something like this with the Dillon, right?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it looks like, but something like that.
Yeah. So, Redding's got them. Everybody's got them. So. So, at least with the Redding trim dies allow you to file trim your cases without unnecessary resizing. Other manufacturers use sizing die dimensions, forcing you to full-length resize when trimming. For case forming and necking brass down from another caliber, Redding trim dies can be the perfect intermediate step before full-length resizing. Pistol trim dies require extended shell holders. So, Um, Paul says you use a fine uh, a fine file to trim your brass. So essentially, you're filing the brass away. So John's hand loading. He was talking about the using the deluxe quick trim. So that's this setup right here that I was talking about earlier. You put this in your drill, mount this in your press, run your brass up, run this down, and it chamfers and deburrs at the same time. So the only thing is I got to take this apart because I think somebody put both different chamfer setups. So on here at the same time. So anyway, that's neither here nor there, but that's kind of how that all works. And then like here's the, it uses a similar style setup, but it's not quite the same as what the other ones use. And then the nice thing is, I forgot to show you one important piece about this. It does have a little tray that goes around your shell holder to catch your brass trimmings. So Paul was just talking about the trim dies. That's how they used to do it in the old days. So Gracie, I've heard that name before. Carl was just mentioning about Gracie trimmers. That's not what I want. There we go. I was looking for the actual Gracie site. So they have a power case trimmer. Which is $335. So the big difference, so Match Prep was founded by Doyle Gracie, an experienced winning competitive shooter, to bring high quality hand loaded ammunition to a larger number of shooters. So Doyle realized that the seemingly simple concept of registering off the shoulder of the case made a reloading job more accurate, faster, and consistent. So that's what they do. It says the Gracie cartridge case trimmer and Gracie outside neck shaver both use Doyle's patented method of registering off the shoulder of the case, which brings identical dimensions each time. And I don't really see any real explanation of, there's documents of literature. Yeah, I don't really see anything on. So it does chamfer into burr at the same time, and it trims to a proper length with a perfect 90-degree angle to the axis of the case. Okay. But it doesn't really say anything about how he came about registering off the shoulder. So maybe we'll have to see about getting him on the show sometime. At any rate, so you can get really serious really fast about getting lots of money spent in your quest to trim brass, just like everything else. So yeah, I mean, you can do it for 20, 25 bucks with the Lee, or you can spend a few $100s, depending on what you want to do. Excuse me. So, I mean, it all depends. Some of them are, fancier than others. Whether you're paying more and actually getting anything more, I don't know. Because ultimately, all of it, it's just like the firearm. It all depends on the person behind the trigger. So, I mean, you could spend a couple $1,000s on a trimmer setup, and if you're not doing it right, then you could screw it up. I don't really know if there's one that's idiot proof out there. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I got for tonight. Jason, you got anything else?
No, sir.
Sharonda?
I got nothing.
Yep. I know some people that never trim their brass. So pistol brass, typically, you don't have to trim like you do rifle brass.
I got a couple of brands. I do have to. I mean, I don't have to trim them. I mean, they'll still shoot, but I would like them to be uniformed.
Yeah. So, Loads of Bacon stopped by. Hello, Loads of Bacon. So, he says, "Happy birthday to you, Sharonda. How's it feel to make it to 24?"
Yeah. Oh, to be that young again.
All right.
To have that metabolism and that energy.
Right. Especially the metabolism.
Right. I'm still recovering from my Chicago trip.
How was that, by the way?
Well, other than the fact I was up there naked and afraid, it was great.
Yeah.
I had cousins that were bodyguards.
Yeah, that's kind of the most annoying thing about Illinois is if you're an out-of-stater, you can't get a permit.
No.
So I don't want to live in Illinois that bad.
I don't want to have to ever visit it again.
I visit every once in a while. Our school is taking a field trip there tomorrow. That ought to be entertaining. Because it's going to be nice and cold. And they're going down to the Kindle Market, which is outside. So that ought to be entertaining. But all right, gang. Well, that's pretty much all I got for tonight. So, oh, Paul said, tell them why you need to trim. Jason, why do you think we need to trim?
Because brass grows.
Mm-hmm.
And it can get dangerously long.
Yep. Sharona, what do you think happens if it gets dangerously long?
It's dangerously dangerous. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist it. Couldn't resist it. Couldn't resist
Not
it.
a problem.
Um, well, you start having seating problems for one,
Yep.
and you can start having some serious malfunctions too.
Mhm.
And you're just showing you're just being lazy
Yep.
and unsafe.
And it definitely messes with the consistency.
Yep.
So, I like Chris Sharp's answer. You have to trim because Paul said so, and what Paul says goes. So,
Yeah, on the pistol rounds, I have to trim. I'm not happy with the seating depth, and I don't want to keep adjusting.
uh-huh.
So I'm like, oh, these are the ones I always have to trim. I'll just set those to the side, and then when I get a moment to go bum somebody's trimmer, I'll shave them down a little bit.
Okay.
Thou shall not waste brass.
No, Chris, that's not going to happen.
I think it should.
You
Oh,
think
I
so
like that. I like that idea too.
much. So,
So John's hand loading nailed it. Pinch the bullet in between the rifling and causes pressure spikes.
yep. So, say you're loading you've got a load that's smoking hot at correct length. Well, then you don't seat it correctly, and you don't get it down to that correct length, and all of a sudden it's jammed, and it's not it's building too much pressure. That can cause problems. But Cody, we will actually talk about that at a different time. So Chris, you forgot the rule. Host vote counts for triple. So there you go. Anyway, so yeah, we will talk about trimming next, but that's not for tonight. So neck trimming and neck turning. Well, kinda, but not really. So neck trimming is what you're doing when you're trimming the brass, technically. So because that's what you're trimming is the neck. But uh, some people call neck turning neck trimming. So, but we'll cover that on a different day. Well, gang, thanks to everybody that tuned in and joined us and gave us.
Mostly because people are lazy and they're just going to keep becoming compliant. You know what I mean? And
Let's ignore that.
So good, we had to hear it twice. Oh. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody that joined us in the chat. All the good info that everybody shares every week. And thanks, Jason, for joining me. Thanks, Sharenda, for joining us on your birthday.
Well, thank you. I wish I could have joined sooner. I sped to get to you guys.
We appreciate that.
I risked tickets.
So, what's the C4 on the hat?
Chicago.
Oh, okay. Cubs?
Yeah. It was on sale.
Oh, okay.
It was a usable, cheap
There you
souvenir.
All right, then.
So when we do trimming, you're going to pull out all the pretty stuff, right? Demo a little bit.
We did a little bit, so for trimming earlier. So I had the world's finest trimmer necked up in the drill, and then I had the Lee one necked up or chucked up in the drill, and I showed the RCBS one that I've got. So, but I don't actually have anything to do neck turning with. So that'll have to be somebody else, hopefully Travis at that point in time. But yeah, Paul Nelson said neck turning is another whole ball of wax. And the great debate right now with neck turning is whether you actually need to or not. Do you really need to? So, but we'll have that debate another day. But I'm just adding stuff in here, so Hookum's got to take more crap out since he left early. So, Paul said, "Thank you guys for taking the time to host another podcast." Absolutely. Speaking of though, there will be no podcast New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve. We will not be recording. So, Danger Zone, that actually is going to happen after the first of the year. So, I'll have another podcast on shot shells, intermediate to advanced. Yeah. So we're definitely going to get back into shot shells, but that'll be after the first of the year. So next week, I'm not really sure what we're going to do. I'll sit down and come up with something before the weekend. So anyway. Chris Sharp has a fantastic idea. For this holiday season, for the ones with kids, buy yourself the gun you want, wrap it, mark it from Santa. Your spouse will have to go with it or ruin Christmas for the kids. And then he wishes he had kids. Well, you know. Anyway, so thank you, everybody that contributes. One of the things I said early on in this podcast is I don't know everything, and I don't pretend to know everything. So that's why I surround myself with people that have knowledge in different areas or more knowledge than I do. And I'm grateful for all the people that help us get all the knowledge out there. One of the things that we want to do at some point in time, and I don't know if we're going to do this via podcast or not, but sometime after the first of the year, we're going to do some starting over stuff, some from the basic stuff. I don't want to do a full thing like we've done before, because I do want to keep going on with kind of going down the rabbit hole a bit for some of the middle of the road to wanting to be experienced reloaders, to kind of give them an idea too. So, but write in to reloadingpodcast@gmail.com and tell us what you think. So, I mean, if we get enough outcry for doing it from the beginning, maybe we will. So, but definitely we're going to go back into shot shell for sure. So, because we definitely need to get back into that. And I want to get a couple people on to talk about some of the more advanced things with shot shells, other than just the basic things you can do. You know, like what's the difference between loading lead and loading steel?
Squeals in delight.
Huh?
I said I'm squealing in delight.
How do you load slugs? You know, different things. So exactly. So yeah, I mean, one of the goals is to not only just teach people how to reload, but as Paul said, turn them into hand loaders. So, and then more importantly, get everybody to share. So, you know, it's one of those things that if you know how to reload, it's great, because I'm working at Cabela's now. I'm working up a customer service, but one of the things is ringing people out from time to time if the cashiers get busy. And so I've had a couple people come over and start wanting to buy some ammo. And, you know, as most people know, federal law, once ammo leaves the store, it's not returnable. So I sit there and I'll, you know, ask them, and then they'll talk about, you know, expense and stuff. And I said, well, you know, you should get into reloading. So I've already had one person come back and start talking to me, come back later and ask a couple questions. So I don't mention the podcast or anything. I just, start talking about, you should start reloading. So, but yeah, the rabbit hole's fun to go down from time to time. So, thank to the Patreons who help support this week in, week out. Thank you to everybody that sends us emails at reloadingpodcast@gmail.com. Everybody that's left us a voicemail or sent us a text at 608-467-0308. Everybody that joins us on the live chat or leaves comments on the YouTube videos. Everybody that listens to the podcast, which, yes, praise the Lord, we finally got off our dead butts and released not one, but two. However, today is December 10th. I released them on the 8th and then kind of the 9th. They will notice that one of the two that I released, which is 277 and 278, I want to say it's 277. The outro is partially in the middle of the podcast because I didn't do the spacing right. And because I edited that one, not Hookem, unless I learn how to split out tracks and have some serious editing software, I'm sorry, gang, it's not getting fixed. Because I'm not re-editing the entire thing again. So, but yes, Paul, I read your email, and we'll cover that next week, actually. So, we kind of did a caliber or cartridge corner with the 300 hammer, but really didn't go into it serious. So maybe we'll redo the 300 hammer some night. So, but on that note, gang, keep your brass shiny.
Be an asset, not a liability.
Introduce the lady to reloading. She just might like it.
And I think we'll just stick with ours for tonight. So next week, I think what we're going to do is we're going to cover a few of the emails that we've got since we've been doing topics and haven't really covered the emails. I know Paul's got one in there to go over, and then there's a couple others we'll talk. There's a couple of constructive criticism ones too that we'll share. So on that note, gang, thank you very much. Like I said, Christmas Eve, which is 2 weeks, and New Year's Eve, which is 3 weeks, we will not be doing live recordings. The goal is to put something out still, but we're not doing live recording. So we'll see y'all next week at this locality.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.